This morning, because of the 4th of July, what I wanted to do is to, because of the 4th of July, rehearse the Declaration of Independence. And usually the first part of the Declaration of Independence sounds very familiar to us. And it has some Christian motifs about the Creator and the providence of God. And then, after that brief introduction, it goes into a list of grievances that had developed over a period of time that made it unbearable and very difficult in the American colonies, and the rules of governance got worse, and hostilities broke out, so that by the time we get to the time of the Declaration of Independence on July 4th, 1776, we already had a Continental Congress, and the Continental Congress approved the Declaration of Independence. There was already hostilities on the high seas, and we had a navy that was established in 1775, and the Battle of Concord and Lexington had already happened. So things escalated very quickly, and in reading through the Declaration of Independence, I see that for our Constitution, the concerns for the way the legislature was set up and the way the judiciary was set up and the way the armed forces derived their authority from the Congress and not from the president, that the formation of our Constitution is hinted at in the Declaration of Independence. And there are already Federalist papers working towards a Constitution by that would set up a government by the people and for the people. I wanted to read this letter to you. This is a letter to F.C. Gilbert that said, "Many claim to be religious, but it is quite another thing to be a Christian. Paul was a religious man before his conversion. Afterward, he was a Christian. The Savior revealed himself to Paul, and Paul was converted. Ever after, Christ was to him the chiefest among 10,000 and the one altogether lovely." This is the way the Declaration of Independence starts out. And one of the things I wanted to convey to you is that number one, in Revelation 13, there is a second beast that starts out as the lamb and then turns into a dragon, and then dominates the economics and even the right to live is controlled by this second beast of Revelation 13. Now, Jesus tells a parable about the 10 virgins. And while the 10 virgins are sleeping, all of them were sleeping, there comes a great announcement that the bridegroom is coming. And when the bridegroom is coming, they all wake up and discover that their lamps were low. And so some had extra oil to fill up their lamps, and others that forgot to bring extra, and they asked to borrow, but oil was already used up in refilling the other lamps. So they missed the big wedding. The point that I want to stress to you is that it wasn't the 10 virgins in the parable that announced the bridegroom was coming. Did you ever notice that in the parable? The 10 virgins didn't announce the bridegroom was coming. Somebody else announced it. And the 10 virgins were not ready because it took so long to get to the wedding. So when in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them. A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impelled them to the separation. So in the Declaration of Independence, we talk about this universality and this great liberty that is, and there's a struggle in the writing of the Declaration of Independence between Benjamin Franklin and John Adams. And Thomas Jefferson is trying to take notes, and they're scratching out lines and words and putting in different ideas. So there is in the DNA of the Declaration of Independence seeds of conflict that will eventually break out in the United States of America. So after this opening thought between the laws of nature and of nature's God, they kind of agree that before you break away from a government that's kind of put you where you are, you need to have the decency to declare what makes you so mad. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, and whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundations on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to effect their safety and happiness. Prudence, indeed, will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. And accordingly, all experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer. That's an interesting observation. Mankind are more disposed to suffer, while evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. People like stability. They don't like to change things on a whim. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. So July 4th is not about eating hot dogs and fireworks. It is about this struggle between good and evil and absolute rule and freedom. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. Number one, these are the grievous acts of the king against the people and abuse against a representative legislature. One, he has refused his assent to laws. He has to sign laws that are voted by the legislature, which is still the practice in our country to become law. The president has to go along with it. In this case, King George III had to assent to the laws, and he wouldn't. The most wholesome and necessary for the public good. Number two, he has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance, unless suspended in their operation till his assent should be attained. And when so suspended, he has utterly neglected to attend to them. Number three, he has refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people, unless those people would relinquish the right of representation in the legislature, a right inestimable to them and formidable to tyrants only, so that the king would create large districts, but he wouldn't let them have a voice in the legislature, either in the colonies or in the parliament. Number four, he has called together legislative bodies at places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the depository of their public records, for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures. He was playing games with these legislative bodies. Number 5, he has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with manly firmness his invasions on the rights of the people. 6, he has refused for a long time after such dissolutions to cause others to be elected, whereby the legislative powers, incapable of annihilation, that is, to respond to invasions or incursions by the French or any other people who were infringing on the colonies, have returned to the people at large for their exercise, the state remaining in the meantime exposed to all the dangers of invasion from without and convulsions within. This has developed over time with no remedy. He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states, and I never realized that this was an issue at the time of the American Revolution. He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states for the purpose of obstructing the laws for naturalization of foreigners. Refusing to pass others to encourage their migrations hither, and raising the conditions of new appropriations of lands. So the colonies could not grow because of this issue of the naturalization of foreigners. So what has happened over the last 200 and some years, this has been percolating as part of our DNA in America. He has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers. Here are more grievous acts against the people about bullying the judiciary and about the military being used as the king's harassers. 1, he has made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their offices and the amount and payment of their salaries. The judges were paid agents of the king. They didn't serve the just administration of law and the righteous rulings in the courts. 1, he has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance. So not only did his military harass the people, but the people had to feed them and give them room and board. He has kept among us in times of peace standing armies without the consent of our legislatures. And this is the idea that the armed forces are under a legislature and a constitutional framework whereby the ability to declare war is done by Congress and not by a president or a king. He has affected to render the military independent of any superior to the civil power. So King George III made the military independent of any civil power. So grievous acts against the people, arbitrary rules not passed by the legislature. 1, he has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation. So he creates another jurisdiction that makes up laws that are different than the legislature, for quartering large bodies of armed troops among us, for protecting them by a mock trial from punishment for any murders which they should commit on the inhabitants of these states. So if somebody in the army or a soldier kills somebody, they are protected. For cutting off our trade with all parts of the world. This you see in Revelation 13. 5, for imposing taxes on us without our consent. 6, for depriving us in many cases of the benefits of trial by jury. So this is a grievance against the judiciary and judges and court procedures. Because a lot of the charges brought against the citizens were trumped up charges. For transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses. They're made up. They're bogus. For abolishing the free system of English laws in a neighboring province, establishing therein an arbitrary government, and enlarging its boundaries so as to render it at once an example and fit instrument for introducing the same absolute rule into these colonies. Continued arbitrary rules contrary to English and American colonial forms of government. For taking away our charters. The colonies were not initially started to be provincial states or countries. They were business charters that were arranged with the king. But when the king started getting complaints from the colonies, then he revoked their charters, their business charters, such as the Massachusetts Bay colony and different colonies that were set up as a business venture for the king to get money, more money than what the parliament would give him. And so then when he had trouble with them, he would take away their charters, take away their business. For suspending our own legislatures, the people formed their own legislatures, and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us in all cases, whatever. So when they created legislatures, he would suspend them, and then he would create his own power to legislate. 11, he has abdicated government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us. So they were his English subjects. When he had an argument with them, he would say they were outside of his protection, and then he would attack them and declare war on them. So how bad can it get? before you declare your independence. He has abdicated government. He has abdicated government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us. And then the next line, he has plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. 12, he is at this time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the work of death, desolation, and tyranny, already begun with circumstances of cruelty and perfidy, scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous ages, and totally unworthy the head of a civilized nation. 13, he has constrained our fellow citizens taken captive on the high seas to bear arms against their country, to become the executioners of their friends and brethren, or to fall themselves by their hands. The king and the parliament wants money from the colonies. So the colonies, seeing that things were getting worse with the king, turned to the parliament, and then the parliament started putting taxes on them. He has excited domestic insurrections amongst us and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers the merciless Indian savages, whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. Take no prisoners. In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. 17, nor have we been wanting in attentions to our British brethren in the Parliament, in the old country. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our emigration from England and settlement here in America. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity, and we have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations which would inevitably interrupt our connections and correspondence. They too, the British brethren, have been deaf to the voice of justice and of consanguinity, that is, we're related by blood. We must therefore acquiesce in the necessity. We must therefore acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation and hold them, as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, in peace, friends. Talking is not doing any good. Negotiating isn't doing any good. Matters are getting darker and darker. So then, in concluding, it says, we therefore, the representatives of the United States of America in General Congress assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do in the name and by authority of the good people of these colonies solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are, and of right ought to be, free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that of free and independent states they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and to do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. And then the signatures of the delegates from the 13 colonies. I bring this to attention to say that it is not the church that announces the loud cry. It comes from society. It comes from living at the end of time. The second beast doesn't survive all the way to the second coming. It is replaced by another dragon. It is a sombering thought that in this land where we enjoy religious freedom and enjoy commercial freedom and enjoy protection for creative and inventive products that come out of the ingenuity of humanity, that it should be swept away even before we get to the end. So the loud cry wakes us up to where we are, and it doesn't lead us to start a new government, but to announce the bridegroom cometh. There comes a time where governments can't do anything more for humanity, and Jesus comes and gets us and takes us to his house, where only righteousness dwells. It is said of Abraham that Abraham walked with God, and he looked for a city whose builder and maker was God. And he walked the whole land, and he never set up camp and became a city, because he didn't give up on the idea that there is a city whose builder and maker is God, wherein only dwells righteousness. No corruption, no violence, no hate, no war. It's coming soon. Amen. Would you stand, please? The Lord bless you and keep you, and cause his face to shine upon you and give you peace in the house where you live and in the workplace where you work. You are the light of the world. And if this summer takes you on travels, whether on business or for a vacation, remember what Jesus said. Lo, I am with you always, even to the end of the world. Amen. God bless you all.